night, and we have former Republican Congresswoman from New York joining the conversation, Nan Hayworth. Nan, by the way, when we get into the autism conversation, is a medical doctor. I should point that out. NewsNation contributors Denise Gitcham and Kurt Bardella and Chris Cillizza, 3 NewsNation contributors for the price of 1. This must be an important day. They're all with us. Cillizza, you want to take the Kimmel news before we move on? Just your first reaction, adding to what Dominic just said.
Yeah, there was a guy named Don Ohlmeyer who was sort of the big deal producer who made Monday Night Football a thing. And he used to famously say, the answer to all your questions is money. And I sort of go back to that, Connell. You know, I think Dom made a couple good points there, which is, what do you do? Like, Colbert is ending next year on CBS, right? So CBS has some time to plan and replace, right? If you just stop running Kimmel, what do? There's ads that can be sold against that, right? His ratings are not amazing, but more than 1 million people tune in every night to watch the guy. And then I think secondarily to money is sort of the PR. Disney is a company that has immaculate PR. I don't know if it's Disney World, I don't know if it's Mickey Mouse, but like, look, they get really good publicity, and they were getting really bad publicity in a lot of corners. Now, my guess is Donald Trump will come out and attack this. I think what the calculation they probably made is, we have Brendan Carr, the FCC chairman or commissioner, basically publicly threatening us. Like, that's a bad look if we look like we're caving to it. So, look, this was a money and political decision. If Jimmy Kimmel is not on the air in a year or 2, I would not be surprised, because late night TV is not exactly a booming industry. Right. I'm mildly surprised they brought him back, though.
That is right, and the timing of it. Yeah, had some people predicting he would never be back, and others saying, well, he'll be back right away. And it turns out it was a relatively short suspension. Denise, on the point that's being made by Chris there about Brendan Carr at the FCC, there was some conservative backlash to the way the government handled that. Yeah. Ted Cruz and others. So pick up on that if you can.
And me too. I'm a First Amendment absolutist. I believe that all speech is speech that should be allowed unless it's incitement. And I stand by that. No matter how our partisan winds blow, we have to be tied to principle above all, because we will not always have President Trump there to support and defend our conservative voices. We need to ensure that we enshrine in our law that the reality, which is that First Amendment that was so vital to our American rights, is protected at all costs. I'd rather see Kimmel die on his horrific ratings. I know Chris was saying they're not that bad, but he's lost 72% of his audience, the 18 to 49 demographic, which is the prime demographic that everyone looks at over the past 10 years, and a whole bunch in the last, just since January. So I'd rather Jimmy Kimmel die on his merits, like his show just fade away on the merits, than actually any government interference.
Well, that's the true kind of conservative economic approach to all this, is let the market decide. Let the market decide.
Exactly.
Okay.
I believe in the free market.
Kurt, what's your perspective on this?
Again, I think that it's a really horrible look for any company to capitulate to any government type of interference or threats or intimidation. As someone who used to be a Republican, my Republicanism was rooted in the idea that government should be hands-off. Government should not be in the business of picking winners and losers. I believe in a smaller, more limited government and a decentralized executive branch. I think that Disney was put in an untenable position where they looked like they had to cave to the authoritarian regime type, cast that was being put out there. And a lot of people who want to do business with Disney overall, a lot of the talent, a lot of the producers, a lot of the writers, a lot of the directors did not want to be in business with a company that could so easily throw one of their biggest marquee stars to the side because of the political winds. It set a really bad precedent business-wise for them. I think that's why they unrolled it today.
Okay, Nan Hayworth, you get the double chance at this. I want you to weigh in on what we've been talking about, but we don't know exactly when the president begins. So, as I said, you're the doctor in the panel, as well as a former member of Congress. We'll start the conversation on autism with you ahead of this event, but any thoughts on Kimmel before we do that?
Well, just very briefly, ABC should emulate what you're doing here, Connor, which is to make sure that they're fairly representing the views of both sides. Certainly, Jimmy Kimmel has had a pretty strong bias, an exceedingly strong bias toward the left. And I think that, with the broadcast network can maybe get you, in trouble with the fairness doctrine. So let ABC voluntarily, I hope Mr. Kimmel finds his way forward with that, to satirize or, satirize universally. It'd be more funny, have a bigger audience, and frankly, it would be more gracious. So if that's one thing that this weekend's events surrounding Charlie Kirk's assassination have taught us, it's that, grace and forgiveness and a thoughtful approach can bring us all together.
After the Erica Kirk comments. Now, let me do this. I want to show something ahead of this event at the White House from the tablet in front of me. We showed it last hour. There is controversy over what causes or what can be done about autism in the United States, but there's no doubt that the rate of autism in the United States has been going up. 1 in 150 in the year 2000, 1 in 31 in the year 2022. We think there will be this announcement made from the administration, Nan Hayworth,
Yes.
saying that there appears to be a link between acetaminophen, which is Tylenol for most of us, and use in pregnant women and the rate of autism. So on that particular point, if that's what we're about to hear, what would you say?
Well, Connell, there has been for more than a couple of decades a lot of concerns surrounding whether or not acetaminophen, which brand name is Tylenol, but it's sold by many generically, whether there's an association between the use of that in pregnancy and in young children to neurotoxicity and to neurodevelopmental disorders. And there is some legitimate concern. A big study was just published. It was out of Mount Sinai, published by the Harvard, in association, I guess, with the Harvard School of Public Health, forgive me, that examined and rated a number of studies according to the best currently used algorithms for determining the quality of these studies, and they have concluded that there is an association. That doesn't necessarily mean that there is causation, and certainly I don't think anybody would reasonably say that, well, acetaminophen consumption is the key to all cases of childhood autism and their great increase over time. One other association is that when aspirin was found to cause Ray's syndrome, a very severe complication in children receiving aspirin when they had the flu, Tylenol use in young children also increased. So there are legitimate concerns. It's part of a multifactorial approach, and probably what will be recommended is that if pregnant women with their doctors' guidance can minimize their consumption of acetaminophen,
Right.
that is probably a good idea.
Okay, that study, or Harvard looking at those studies, the link was in 27 of the 46 studies.
Yes.
So you see that the 27 studies showed links, 9 no links, 4 negative links. The other study, and so it's interesting, Denise, in all of this big study out of Sweden, a lot of people are talking about when you look at autism or ADHD, you don't see much difference. And in fact, the conclusion on that is that there's no causal relationship between acetaminophen and autism. So, Denise, I think for a lot of people, and this is why this becomes a political minefield to some extent, is that a lot of parents today are very, very hopeful, but also looking at this with a certain amount of skepticism because it's been so long.
Sure.
They know that first chart's true, that the rates are going up. So how do you see all this?
Yeah, I mean, maybe we'll learn more today, but so far it feels even Dr. Marty Makary, head of the FDA, has said that there's nothing conclusive, right? And so until the new studies come out, I'm not a doctor. I'm so grateful Nan's on because she's a lot smarter than I am on all these issues. But I can tell you that there's been dozens of peer-reviewed articles and research from global institutions dating back as far as 2008 when Dr. Anthony Torres first studied the relationship of autism spectrum disorder with acetaminophen. And so it's been 17 years of studies, and by the most prominent, institutions that we have in terms of science and health. So, I think it's not that there's nothing there. The question is, as a lawyer, just put on the lawyer hat, did these companies that were making Tylenol, and it was Johnson & Johnson until 2 years ago when they sold to another company who spent, by the way, $4.4 million in lobbying just in the first half of this year. Did they have a failure to warn? Was there enough there for them to say, we've studied this for 17 years and almost every single study had some sort of causation? Was there enough of their responsibility? Was there any responsibility enough there to say they should probably have warned. And I think politically, that's what it's going to come down to. Unfortunately, in Washington, you got to follow the money. And when I see lobbyists and the pharma companies coming out massively and swinging with lots of money, that generally goes their way. This is a new era under President Trump. I'm not sure that it's going to go their way.
Well,
and
on the
that's
politics,
a great thing for Americans, by the way.
okay, on the politics of all of this, Kurt and Chris, I'd be curious to see how you guys see this. I mean, one of the things, and I'm barely qualified to ask questions about the science of it, which we did last hour with the doctor, and ends with us this hour, which is, as Denise says, is helpful. But on the politics of all of this, one of the things that came out, and I don't know if you agree with this, Kurt, of COVID for kind of liberals and Democrats as a risk, is that sometimes right away, without looking or considering an alternative method, they say, well, no, that's wrong. That's the science. And maybe, and in many cases it is. And in some cases, well, let's have a larger conversation. And I just wonder how Democrats will handle this conversation. Is it knee-jerk, no, it's wrong, it's crazy, or is there a larger conversation to be had, Kurt?
This has to be a larger conversation. I'm someone who lives this every single day. Our oldest is on the spectrum, was diagnosed, 4 or 5 years ago. And I can tell you, for parents who live this life day in and day out, we could care less about the politics.
Right.
I am so overjoyed that an administration is putting this issue front and center first and foremost, that we are having a national conversation about autism, about causality, about symptoms, about relief. The one thing I do know for sure, and every parent who lives this every day could tell you, is that our institutions, academically, socially, culturally, are woefully inadequate at meeting the needs of these kids. We see it every day. We had to fight tooth and nail with my kid's school to get what we would deem reasonable exceptions so that he could just get his PE credit. And there's so much misinformation and misunderstanding and judgment from so many corners about kids who are on the spectrum. Remarkable kids who deserve every opportunity in life. And I am just glad that we're at least having this conversation. I hope that both parties, no matter how you feel about Donald Trump, no matter how you feel about Bobby Kennedy, are willing to engage in the thoughtful conversation and be open to new ideas, be open to new information, and embrace it with caution, of course, because it's our kids' health and nothing's more important. But let's have that conversation, not just about causality, not just about what we can do to make it better, but just how we can make our institutions more amiable to all these kids.
Absolutely. I can understand that, Kurt. If I can follow up on that for a moment, the two words that I used earlier was that it would seem to me parents would be hopeful, some might be skeptical. Are you either or both, or how do you feel ahead of this?
I'm hopeful that we're having a national conversation at the highest level about autism in America. But I'm always skeptical whenever it's the United States government or any government figure that's going to put out blockbuster findings. Again, trust but verify, I think, is a lot of the terms that most parents use when it comes to this stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of parents that are going through what you're going through are in the same boat today. Chris Cillizza, how do you see all this?
Well, I'd echo what Kurt said, because I think I feel very similarly. I mean, look, do I think that a healthy amount of skepticism, not just to the U.S. government, but to the pharmaceutical industry is warranted? Yes. I would urge people to read a book called Empire of Pain about OxyContin. And if you come out of that one thinking that healthy skepticism to the pharmaceutical industry isn't warranted, then you and I need to have coffee, because it is.
Yeah.
And the government, yes, absolutely. My thing always is, look, would I love for them to have discovered a silver bullet that causes autism so in future we can, of course. I mean, yeah. Am I skeptical broadly as a non-doctor? Sorry, Mom. Yes. I think what Dr. Hayward said is right. Like a multifactorial approach. I wrote that down because I wanted to remember it, right? Yeah. Of course, we should look at every possibility, but let's not draw conclusions based on the studies you show suggest maybe, and look, maybe can very well warrant more discussion and more research. I'm not saying we ignore maybe. I just don't want people to be, Donald Trump at the Charlie Kirk Memorial yesterday was saying, this is a big announcement. We found what causes autism. When you get into that kind of declarative stuff, I think it's dangerous, either party, and it's bad for science.
No, I hear that. I mean, I hear that on a number of issues, not just this issue. But now that you've listened, as we said, you're the former member of Congress and the medical doctor on the panel. You don't agree with everybody on this panel politically, I'm sure, many times. But what would you say about what they've just said about this issue? I mean, what would you add?
very much appreciate the thoughtful conversation, and Kurt and Chris and Denise are all making excellent points. Chris, I've got an even more recent book that perhaps you've read called No More Tears.
I have not, but I will write it down to read it.
Read it. It was published this summer, and it is a fascinating look. It's one author's perspective, but thoroughly researched, and it justifies your expression of healthy skepticism about, look, everyone, what one lesson COVID taught us is that whether it's industry, which we need, to be healthy and honest and robust, government, same, and with as limited a reach into our lives as we can rationally provide, but also looking out for those consumer protections. But I would just say this. One thing I think we can all think about is that this news today, this, again, correlation, not causation, although there is some evidence scientifically that a metabolite of acetaminophen becomes a chemical that can harm brain tissue. And that's also worth just having in mind. What we need to do to go from here is to identify who's most at risk, who is most susceptible. Multifactorial almost assuredly is going to be the case. It's not going to be this one thing, as my fellow panelists have pointed out. But where do we go from here? We invest in the research, and I'm not sure industry will be willing to do it. So as a nation, this is something that we may have to do. The National Institutes of Health may have to do, and it's under great leadership now. But find out, rigorously scientifically, what are those factors? We have the machine learning and artificial intelligence tools now to perform very sophisticated analyses, and they really have to be forward-looking. So we're going to need a lot of cooperation by Americans, by the medical profession, by industry, and by our government.
One more thing on this, I wonder, and Kurt, I'll give this to you as a parent. I wonder whether we're going to hear anything about vaccines today. And the only reason I bring that up is if we do, would the announcement from Secretary Kennedy, given his history on this relationship between acetaminophen and autism that we've been talking about, lose any credibility with you? Or what would you say about that topic at all, if anything?
I think that if he presents fact-based information that has been peer-reviewed, that has been scrutinized, I am all for as much information being put into the public discourse as possible, as long as it's credible, as long as it's accurate, as long as there's been some accountability in how that information was collected and interpreted and then ultimately shared. I'm not one of those parents who believes, oh, anything that hits this word is a no-go. I think that's a stupid way to go about parenting, especially when you're dealing with a nervous system condition like autism. We live every day knowing that anything can send our kids into fight or flight. The texture of their shirt, the environment, the stickiness of a piece of food can completely upend their nervous system. I'm all for as much information being out there that can help us guide us through that.
That makes sense. You can certainly understand that. Kurt and Chris, Denise, Nan, thank you. You were all terrific, very, very thoughtful. We have this